Hey, what's up, what's up, what's up, what's up? Gracious good morning to you good people. Again, it's your girl KB. You know what I do and you know why I do it. It is Friday, September 5th, and it's 4:46 in the a.m. I got interrupted doing my Kendrick Lamar celebration, if you will, because I heard John Law outside my window giving instructions on their speaker system to not get on the freeway. I looked outside my window and I couldn't see anything, so and the sound was traveling, so I know they were headed to the freeway on ramp. But I want to keep my eye on John Law just as much as they keep their eye on me. How about that? Anywho, back to Kendrick. There was a song that I heard the other day, and I talked about it briefly in the first video. Chains and Whips. Never heard that song before. And like I said, I got into Kendrick last year based on a coworker repeating the lyrics over and over again. And going to several Kendrick Lamar concerts. I don't like the concert environment. I'm not a big person on social events when there's a huge group of people. I get a little bit anxious, I must admit. And, hell, I'm old. The coworker's a few years younger, but not much. But, we were raised under different circumstances and different environments. So I love my me time, my downtime. And when I socialize, it's of my choosing. If I'm forced to go anywhere, it's not a good time for anybody. But I digress. So I'm listening to this song, and Kendrick mentions the Bible verse, John 10:10. It said it's John 10:10 for me. But the song basically is an indictment on, what we, and by we I mean people of color, as a collective, value or see as value. And it reminded me of a time I took a professor to task. Man, we had a heated conversation because there were three black people in his class at this time. Two of which were heavy into their Afro-Saxony. Yeah, I said it. I had just moved to this damned cow town from New York. And I was in this cow town as a result of my parents' divorce. But, I was college age and I attempted to do college. That was my first attempt at college. It took me 3 years to do junior college because I didn't allow myself enough time to transition from my New York state of mind to, this cow town school of thought. And I can tell you, for the most part, during that time, I was in survival mode. And during this time, I was definitely sowing my wild oats as far as alcohol consumption is concerned. At the time I moved here to Cali, I'm going to say here, for the story's sake, because I live in the big city now and I love the big city and I always have. But this particular cow town, you know, the legal drinking age was 18 when I left New York. And I was 17, headed toward 18. But my parents allowed me to have an occasional beer in the privacy of our own home. And it just so happened that one of the kids that I grew up with, their father worked for a beer distribution company, so they always had beer. There you have it. And for the most part, when I'm drinking, if and when I'm drinking, that's what I'm drinking. Beer. So, you know, I spent a lot of time in survival mode, and I want to say beer-soaked survival mode in this cow town. I lived there for 8 years, 2 of which was drinking until I got acclimated, and then the rest was trying to identify with fundamental Christians, fundamentalist, racist Christians, but because they slapped the term Christian on it, you know, it gave me a subtle brainwashing where I had to stop to think about what it is that I'm saying. This is going to be a long, multi-part video, so I just need you to bear with me. Yes, so now, here I am, some 50 plus years later, deconstructing what it means to be Christian. For me, it's acknowledging that there are books that are not canonized and that people had control over that. You know, books that folks didn't want you to read or learn about. You know, we have Revelation canonized, but we don't have the Book of Enoch canonized. Both are somewhat apocalyptic, but one is excluded. Why? The only way to know is to read it. But I caution you in reading it that, you know, be prayed up and stay focused, because it is such a dark reading. Yeah, at times, the thought of reading Revelation is frightening. But there you have it. You know, Christian means Christ identified, to follow Christ. It does not mean legalism. You know, I have this strict set of rules that I must adhere to. Yes, we do have a standard. But, you know, when, like most people, when they don't like the standard, they change the rules. So, all that being said, what's your standard? Have you asked yourself that question? Have you analyzed you to understand how you relate to Scripture? And see, here's where that word truth comes in too. You know, truth unravels misconceptions, false perceptions, you know, of who you are and what you project on people. So people don't like the truth. There are some people now, fundamentalists who call themselves Christians but don't like Christ because he's too woke. We spend too much time focusing on the woke teachings of Jesus. Newsflash, that's what Christianity is. Okay, just needed to put that out there. Here's another newsflash. And I posted a video of Joy Reid saying the exact same thing, or one of the people she was talking to or interviewing. So if you don't like Jesus, you are most likely one of the people who would have been in the crowd that chose Barabbas or to crucify Jesus. Just some thought. So in the next segment, I'm going to talk about the passage of scripture that Kendrick Lamar used in the song Chains and Whips.